I'm staring at my radiator, but I'm thinking of the transmission fluid, which goes through the radiator. You may notice on all of these cars, there's actually 2 radiators. Everyone knows antifreeze is in the radiator. That's that one you're seeing the top of. And it rather hurts to hold your hand on that. Oh, there's another one hidden right there. Wait a minute, where's my, oh, here it is. Here. Not as hot. This has got a lot of things. It's got things from the power steering pump. It's got things from the, I don't know what else. Transmission fluid, power steering pump. I can't think of the other one. Maybe actually oil. But and it ends us about 5 radiators, not 1. Everyone thinks there's 1. This one is about changing your transmission fluid. Everyone says you have to take off the whole big thing on the bottom of it, and there's all these complex ways to put it back in order and the torque specs and everything. And that drains, on this particular car, for example, it drains 5 quarts of, I want to see how much I can hold my hand without screaming. Ow. Ow! Sorry, imagine screaming. Let me get this over with one more time. All right. Anyway, where was I? All right, just curious. Where was I? Talking about the transmission fluid that goes through this thing. Most people say you have to, by the way, I'm not a masochist, I was just curious. How much that hurt? I started right in the middle between things like that. Most people say you have to take out the whole, you look on YouTube, you have to take out the whole big pan on the bottom of the transmission. On this car, that will help you to drain out 5 quarts of transmission fluid. Unfortunately, this car has 13 1/3 quarts of transmission fluid. Most of it's hovering around in the transmission, in this radiator, a couple quarts in the hoses that go through this radiator, in the torque converter, which is this big donut looking thing right about there while the engine stops and the transmission starts, and in many parts back in the tail of the transmission and everything else. All that comes out when you take off that thing, that big 2-hour project, or you pay someone $150 to do it so it doesn't leak, is 5 quarts. You're not draining much, you're not switching much of the fluid. 2/3 of it is still there. You're putting in 5 quarts of new fluid and mixing it with 2/3 of the thing of old fluid. It's a waste of money, and it costs like $150 to have a place do it. If you go down to the bottom of this car, which I will not do with this phone, on the side of the transmission, right near the engine and the starter, there's 2 metallic looking hoses that go back to the transmission. One of them is hot right now, one of them is cold. The hot fluid comes out of the transmission, goes through the transmission part of the front radiator, which is like 1/3 of that radiator, and comes back to it and it's cooler when it comes back. You feel which one's hot, which one's cool, and you know from that the hot one is the one that's going to it, because the radiator thing has cooled it. The cool one's, hot one's the one that's going to that, leaving in transmission, the cool one's coming back. Ergo, what you do then, you have a hot one and a cold one. You've taken note of which one it is, maybe put a piece of electrical tape around it. You take the cold one out, dump it in a clean bucket, start the engine will run transmission fluid through the engine, through the transmission, through the radiator, through everything, through the hose that's coming back, and will empty out into the bucket, maybe 7, 8, 9 quarts, without taking the whole pan off, just turning this one thing, and then the bucket's full, screw the thing back in, then get a funnel, put it on the transmission dipstick tube, get 10 new quarts of transmission fluid, put it in. It's twice as good as that big $200 project of taking that thing out to drain 5 quarts out. You've drained like 10 quarts out. Now I might be wrong about 10, it might be 7 or 8 or 9 or something, but it's more. It's cycling it out and through. And don't put your car in gear when you're doing it, because it's pretty risky for your transmission already. But I ain't taking all of it out. And then you are done for 50 cents of labor. You've changed twice as much transmission fluid. Don't take my word for it. Don't believe anything you hear on YouTube. That could be bad for the transmission. I've heard people say they do it though. That's a 50-cent fix. 2 videos to go.